Hi guys. Can you see and hear me okay? And I think Peter Beck and Matthews, you were the first people to join. Thanks for being early. I set up I kind of clicked into the stream. You can join early as a teacher, and it tells you that there's people there. Hi everyone that's coming in. If I haven't met you before or we haven't said hello on other lives, please say hi and introduce yourselves. We've got a really nice community of a lot of Insight Timer regulars here, plus always some new faces. So it's great to meet you all. Hi Megan, lovely to meet you from Northern Michigan. I'm in London, as some of you might have guessed from my accent, and some of you who know me. Hi Melanie, lovely to see you again. I hope you're well. And has everyone had a good day so far? What time is it where you are? And have you been up to anything interesting or exciting? Or, if you want to share like a highlight from your day today so far, just while we wait for everyone else to join. Hi, Iga. 6 a.m. Wow. Peterbrook, where are you? I'm imagining in the US. Oh, in Australia. Got it, got it. Well, thank you for waking up early for this. Amazing. Sunshine. It's getting colder in London at least. Oh wow, Marthy's, you're in California. Amazing. And yeah, 1 p.m. there. And thanks for joining. So I know I've known Marthy's for a long time from another teacher's lives in the past. North Queensland. Cool. So for anyone that's just joined, if you haven't joined on my sessions before or you haven't actually introduced yourself previously, like please just say hello. You can share kind of where you are, what time it is there, and a little highlight from your day or something that you're looking forward to today, even if it's a really small thing. Oh, cool. Your daughter lives in London. Do you visit often, Matthew? So I think, yeah, there's only 8 of us so far, but I'm happy to kind of get started. So if you can give me some hearts if you've been to one of my sessions before, so I know kind of what the kind of energy in the room is. I think quite a few of you have been to previous sessions, and some of you are newbies. But ultimately, just a bit of kind of overall context. I basically started these sessions, and I picked this topic of communication and community and authentic and meaningful connection, because I think that's something that we're missing as a kind of society now. And with more and more kind of digital advances, technology, AI, people are sort of prioritizing other things over actually connecting face to face or in person where we can. And I know, we've had a couple of people come to the sessions before where they've shared that for various reasons, kind of health and other things, they're not always able to kind of go out and about and connect with people in the way that they would have liked to, or the way they would have done historically. And I think that that's kind of a reminder to the rest of us that while we can kind of connect with people face to face in person, we should be trying to make the most of it and kind of do our best in that respect. So that's kind of why I want to kind of obviously remind people that why these things are important and the impact it can have on us in terms of like longevity, health, wellness, but also showing people how to kind of do that, and maybe sharing some inspiration. And if you guys have ideas or things that you do that have made an impact to your sense of community and the connections and sort of relationships that you have in your life, like please share them and share examples for other people as well, so they know it's possible. I'm just going to catch up on the comments. So, oh, cool, Matt. Ego, you went past Wrexham. Nice. And Melanie, you've got lovely weather as well. I feel like everyone in the US has nice weather at the moment. Oh, nice. So, Marthy's, you live in Wales, but you're visiting California. Amazing. Hi, Jean. Nice to see you. I think I've seen you at some other sessions before. I don't know if it's been mine or other teacher sessions, but I recognise your face, Dave. Oh, Montreal. Lovely. And welcome. It's nice to have you here. So for anyone that's just joined, I'm Priyanka. It's really nice to meet you or to see you again. And yeah, for some of the regulars, it's been great to have you kind of back. And yeah, by the way, guys, Melanie is a really wonderful teacher on Insight Timer as well. So please like follow her. And if there's any other teachers here, please feel free to share your details on your next lives, your kind of channels, and how people can find you and connect. So does anybody here have any specific questions before I kind of start into the stuff I've got planned for today? Do you guys have any questions around, or any struggles that you personally have around creating kind of authentic, meaningful connections or building community in your lives? So today's topic is largely around communication. And I guess there's kind of two streams that I've got in mind of how I'm going to structure this. The first thing is kind of overcoming the barrier that some people might have about speaking to people that they're not sure about connecting with, like, you know, when you're talking to someone new or introducing yourself to a stranger. And then the second stream is going to be around, if you're already good at that and you already kind of feel comfortable doing those things, how you can create even more meaningful and more authentic connections, conversations, relationships that aren't built around kind of, you know, small talk or things like that. So there's kind of the two streams there. Are you guys open to sharing which bucket you fall into? Are you somebody that's comfortable? I mean, so let's categorize them. So bucket A is if you're wanting some support and help on how to kind of, you know, introduce yourself to strangers, like meet new people, connect with new people, and have conversations where you haven't spoken to someone before. And then a band B or bucket B, whatever we want to call it, is where you're already good at that. You're already good at meeting kind of new people, introducing yourself. You don't really have like a fear or hesitation around that, but you'd like to understand, you know, tricks and tips to deepen those conversations and make them more meaningful, more authentic, less kind of small talky. So if you guys share A or B in the chat, that'd be really useful. Okay, Melanie, bucket B. I thought so. I mean, you're a teacher on here. Peterbrook, bucket B. So we might focus more on those things. Great. So most of us are in bucket B then, I think. Cool. Is there anyone for bucket A, or are we all team B? B as well. Great, Megan. I think a few people might have just jumped on as well. For anyone that's just joined, we're putting ourselves into bucket A or bucket B, and that will kind of guide the direction of the session a little bit more. So bucket A is if you'd like kind of information on how to connect with people more, and, you know, let's say start conversations with people you don't know, or introduce yourself where you're feeling a bit nervous or hesitant. And bucket B is where you're already kind of comfortable doing those things and putting yourself out there, but you'd like more information or more context on how to build kind of deeper, more meaningful, more authentic, you know, less small talky sort of connections and conversations. So, I mean, most people here so far are bucket B, so that's what I'm gonna always chatting people up. Ego, brilliant, brilliant. So, there's a few kind of things that I'll cover within that. So, I think the kind of first thing that I would say is, like, even if you have those skills and you're comfortable kind of always speaking to people, I think there's all still, regardless of that, there's often still situations where maybe we can sometimes get a little bit like nervous, or, you know, if someone else doesn't seem like warm or receptive, we might still in certain situations not be quite as comfortable as we are like the rest of the time. And I know for me personally, I'm usually someone that, you know, I'll sit in the front row of a comedy show, and I have no fear around that. I'll be honest, actually, that's a lie. I do have fear because I'll be really nervous and really, like, honestly anxious, and my body temperature will definitely increase when the comedian tries to sort of, like, a lot of my friends call it, like, pick on people. But I do kind of quite enjoy it, and I feel like I'm getting good value and, you know, enjoying the full extent of the comedy show from end to end. But I kind of still have those nerves and the hesitation, even though I really enjoy that, and I will always sit in the front row. And exactly, PJ, that's exactly my point, is that it is kind of, you know, dependent on the day. It's also dependent on the situation and the scenario. So, for example, I find that if, let's say, like, I travel to a new place, or I'm somewhere where I'm a bit outside of my comfort zone, then I'm maybe not as kind of like chatty and bubbly and authentic immediately, where, you know, I don't necessarily feel like super at home in my surroundings. And I say this on all of my live sessions, but if you need a reminder to hydrate and get a glass of water or make yourself a tea or something, please do. And I only say that because I quite often sort of need to drink more water myself, and I think most people do. So we've got a couple of responses. Yeah, Melanie, we are all used to conversing with each other on here. And it's interesting, right? Because I think a lot of us, even though, you know, a lot of the Insight Timer kind of audience exists mainly in the chat, I know a lot of us become teachers. We do have that practice or that habit of, you know, connecting with people. And it is wonderful. There's so many people here that I've spoken to purely on the chat. And then since I've become a teacher, we've kind of spoken on WhatsApp or on other mediums. And, you know, it's people that I've kind of known on and off for years through this. And so, yeah, eager, always chatting people up. I understand that. And also, I think that's another thing that kind of inspired a little bit of a nudge or a thought in me to the fact that, you know, sometimes maybe we also need to be a bit more discerning or occasionally have some boundaries, not all the time and not for everybody, but like I know for me personally, sometimes I do feel like, oh, there are times where actually you know, being open and sort of really chatty and connecting with people is like helpful, and then there's other times where maybe like having a bit of a kind of, you know, quieter or calmer or receptive energy would actually serve me better. So I think it just depends sometimes on the situation and um, what what's appropriate as well, I suppose. So, Matthews, you're a people person and you used to be shy, but it comes naturally in most cases. Yeah, that's really great to hear. And that goes to show as well that, you know, whatever your kind of communication style is or how comfortable you feel, that can like change and evolve and grow. And Siva, lovely to see you here. So you connect to many people, but then you find you didn't like them after all. Too worried if they like you. Yeah, I completely understand that as well. I think it's interesting there because I think obviously we've talked before about kind of attachment styles and things as well. And obviously like people pleasing or worrying what people think about you is very common for like anxious attachment, but that's not the only attachment style it kind of exists for. But I think that's an important point. It's when we're connecting with people, when we're meeting people, I think we also do have to think about, do we like them? Do we want to be around them as well? And it's not just about, oh, will they like us? Um, and that is, yeah, I think that's that's such an important reminder for a lot of us. And PJ, you've just said a linear pathway to buckets, just like a linear pathway in life. That's a really interesting observation. Yeah, it's not like, I think life isn't a linear path, right? And in most cases, even if you plan for the linear and you sort of expect that to be the case, there's curveballs all the time. And I guess, yeah, and putting yourself into buckets is the same thing. For anybody who joins, no, but I knew what you meant, PJ. Yeah, the linear pathway. It's not that it's flawed. I think it's that it's impossible. You know, yeah. I was gonna try and add an analogy or a metaphor, but I think it would have been a really bad one. It was going to be something about how, you know, even if you have like a dirt road that's straight, and then if it rains, and you know things get like messy, and that's the thing that came into mind, the kind of image or like download that I had, but I don't know if that's a good comparison or not. Right, so for anybody that's just joined, by the way, what we're talking about today, we're going to be talking about kind of communication skills and tips, and how you can sort of, if you're already comfortable in like sort of engaging with new people, introducing yourself to people, how you can deepen the connections you have and sort of, you know, go a step beyond like small talk, for example, and have kind of more authentic, meaningful conversations sooner and quicker. Or if you're someone who's, then that we labeled that bucket B or band B. Well, the other part was if you're in bucket A, where you think you kind of need a bit more help with the initial bit of actually connecting with people and how you put yourself out there or get out of your comfort zone in terms of introducing yourself to people, etc. So if you've just joined, please share whether you lean more towards bucket A or bucket B. It seems so far that most people on Insight Timer are more on bucket B than A, but we've basically also established that it's nuanced. So it depends on a lot of things like where you are, comfort zone, the particular kind of sort of context of a situation as well. So yeah, you can add those in the chat if you haven't already. And if there's anyone new that wants to like say hello and introduce themselves, and if there's any teachers that want to share kind of their kind of sessions or names, please do sort of promote yourselves in the chat. But yeah, so kind of looking at bucket B. So obviously most of us here are people that feel comfortable kind of connecting with people around us, and we probably don't feel that much kind of fear or hesitation. But I think what's important for us to be aware of, and I'm sure most of us are, is that I personally feel, and I kind of feel like this is one of the things that I'm sort of on this earth for, is I feel that it's our privilege, really, that we feel comfortable putting ourselves out there, connecting with people, kind of shining and sharing our light. It's kind of our responsibility to bring other people into that light or shine that light on them. And what I mean by that is, for example, if you're in, let's say, like a group conversation, and the people in that conversation, there's obviously going to be a few people that are more comfortable, more confident, and can, talk more freely and are more vocal. And then there'll also be people who are less comfortable and confident, a bit quieter. And I think being mindful of trying to bring them into the conversation, or inviting them into, for example, if you're talking about something specific, turning to that person and saying, oh, like, what do you think, or something like that. Well, not in a way that puts them on the spot, but in a way that makes them feel included or creates opportunities for them to come out of their shell a little bit, or engage more than they otherwise would. I think that's a really important and nice thing. Or even another example, so for example, where I live, there's a lot of neighbours that I'm friends with and close to, and I kind of know that I know a lot of neighbours. I'm quite, comfortable and confident and connected here. But when new people move in, for example, or people are a bit more reserved or a bit more shy, I'll try and basically connect them with other neighbours or invite them to things. Oh, PJ, thank you so much for your donation. I really, really appreciate that. That's really kind of you. And it makes me feel like I'm kind of, what I'm sharing is appreciated and valued. So I really appreciate that. And obviously, I'd very graciously and gratefully accept and receive any other kind of donations or gifts that you guys have as well, to thank me for my time and my work. Yeah, so I was just saying that basically, we've just had a few other people join. So essentially, if you've just joined, we're basically putting ourselves into bucket A or bucket B, and whichever one you kind of fit into more. So bucket A is where you might want more support or help in connecting with new people, introducing yourself, putting yourself out of your comfort zone, or you're a bit hesitant about speaking to people you don't know. And then bucket B is where you're already good at that, you're comfortable doing that, but you want to maybe deepen or increase the connection or the depth of conversations that you have with kind of strangers or new people. So one of the points I was just sharing was around basically bringing other people into conversation where they might not be as comfortable or confident, or creating opportunities to sort of involve other people in community or connections where they can't necessarily do that themselves yet. And obviously, it's not about like forcing people to kind of go out and do things when they don't want to, but it's more about being mindful of and aware that everybody's different, and there might be people who we know or who we've met who wouldn't feel comfortable putting themselves out there, but actually would love to still socialize or meet new people or be invited to something, etc. So that's kind of one thing that I feel that we have, an opportunity as those of us who kind of are more comfortable sort of putting ourselves out there. We can also like take others with us, is what I'm trying to say. And then I was also, I've made a couple of notes that I'm going to share as well around So Iga, bucket A, needing more support and ideas to connect to people. Bucket B, you already know how to do that. So yes, so what, and the kind of, and that's a really nice, actually, I'm glad you put that in there together, because what I think is essentially if you're in bucket B, you can help and support people from bucket A. And also bucket A, I think there's other, obviously I'm a bucket B and many of us are bucket B. So if there are any bucket A's here, please share with us what you feel that bucket B's can learn from you guys, and what, you know, ways that you can teach and support us as well. So yeah, I'd love to kind of like look at the flip side of that as well. And if anyone has any ideas, bucket B's, let's have a think. What can we learn, or how can there be kind of, you know, with obviously bucket people in bucket A, we can kind of help them to, you know, feel more comfortable putting themselves out there, connecting with people. But what can we as bucket B's get from bucket A's, or learn from them, or, you know, what value can bucket A's add to our lives, I think is an interesting reflection. So if anyone has any ideas, please share them in the chat. So one of the, I've been kind of like researching into, you know, how we improve our communication. Yeah, Cat Blue, that's exactly what we were saying. It depends on the situation. But I was looking into, you know, different methods and skills and just general tips on how we can deepen our connections with other people. And funny enough, one of the first things that came up is speaking more kindly to ourselves. And you kind of don't think about, we don't maybe think about our connection, our relationship with ourselves immediately when we're thinking about how we connect to other people, how we relate to other people. But actually, the way we treat ourselves and the way we speak to ourselves is kind of leading, you know, we're leading by example, and we're paving the way for how other people treat us. And that's kind of a really, really important thing that I've learned, is that where we kind of treat ourselves well and speak to ourselves well, generally we'll have better boundaries and put up with mistreatment less from other people. So I think that's kind of a really important observation. Like if you have a harsh inner critic, or you're kind of in a monologue, or even outer monologue, because sometimes you do get people who, you know, will speak badly about themselves, or speak about themselves in a kind of derogatory manner. Hi, Evie. And also, Cat Blue, I know I responded to your comment, but also hi. Thanks for joining, guys. And yeah, so I think, and also how we speak to ourselves is really, it's a fundamental, it's such a fundamental thing in terms of our relationship with ourselves. And if we don't have a good, healthy relationship or connection with ourselves, it does make it harder for us to have kind of healthy, happy connections and relationships to other people. And I think this is something that I'm actually navigating myself at the moment, where I think I'm definitely working really hard on my relationship with myself, and um how I show up for myself. And, you know, maybe where there's elements of kind of self-sabotage coming in, or I'm getting in my own way, um in terms of relationships and connections and things like that. And so that's something that I'm kind of working on and reflecting a lot on at the moment. And I think I'll probably do a separate session of that when I'm kind of, you know, not in the midst of it. Um, but so Jean says from the inside out without buckets. Yeah. The thing is, I didn't plan to use the buckets terminology or analogy. And I feel like I've said it so many times on this live that it's become a thing on this live. But I think you know what I mean, like band A, band B, or like whatever, however you want to classify it. So thank you for welcoming everyone, Iga. You can be my official welcome committee. And it's lovely to meet those of you where it's your first time here. So yeah, so Marthes, you've said bucket A, teach us their sensitivities and to be loving and compassionate towards them much more to help them overcome their shyness and insecurities. Yeah, and I think actually one of the things that I feel that I could do with learning from bucket A is learning to listen more. And so for those who've just joined, we're putting ourselves into two categories, bucket A or bucket B. Iga shared a little bit of context in the chat around that, but bucket A is where you maybe need a bit of help, or you're looking for advice or nudges on how to put yourself out of your comfort zone, connect with new people, introduce yourselves, kind of, be brave in that initial stage of meeting new people. And then bucket B is you're already good at doing those things and you sort of want to learn how to deepen your connection with other people, less small talk, more meaningful, authentic connection. So if you guys who've just joined want to put bucket A or bucket B, or just the letter A or the letter B in the chat. I've been saying the word bucket, but yeah, and I think that is the thing. It's holding space for people who are less vocal than us as bucket Bs. So, Evie, you're bucket A. Okay. So we're trying to also, and one of the things I'd shared earlier is that basically if you're in, group A where you're a little bit more shy, a little bit more reserved, and you need a bit of support with meeting new people and things like that, then as bucket people who are in like band bucket B, we have a responsibility to help other people who are less like strong and less vocal than us in that respect, to include them more, to create opportunities in a group conversation for someone in bucket A to like speak and be involved. Because I'm sure most of us have been in conversations where you're in a group conversation, but really there's only like 2 or 3 people out of a bigger group dominating the conversation. So it's basically about being mindful of our different communication styles and creating space and opportunity for other people to also like shine their light as well, even if they need a bit more time or nudging or kind of encouragement than we do. And I liken it to like our switch is always on and we need to kind of help them find, turn up the dimmer switch. And I've kind of repeated myself a few times because I know there's been a lot of new people joining. And so, yeah, and the just before I was kind of talking about, just before I went to kind of the little recap, we're talking about how our relationship to ourselves and the way we speak to ourselves and treat ourselves is super important in how we show up in the world and how we connect to other people, because essentially that means that we basically show other people by example how to treat us. And if we're not speaking kindly to ourselves, if we're not treating ourselves well, then when other people do treat us well or treat us nicely, we feel like we don't deserve it. So I'm just going to catch up on the chat. Cat Blue, you said where to go locally. Do you mean, is that a question? You're asking like where you can go locally to meet new people? Hi, Danny. Lovely to see you here. And Marthiza said online it's more difficult as we can't see their body language, but I can sense their energies in most cases. Yeah, and I think that's so true. I think, yeah, on the phone and obviously in person or video call, it's a lot easier to tell what someone's energy is like, what their kind of vibe is. And so when I've mentioned this before, but when I used to kind of go, when I used to sort of use online dating apps, I would, generally speaking, always try and speak to someone on the phone or on video call before I committed to meeting them in person. And I'd know very quickly whether it was someone that I actually wanted to meet in person or not, because you do get a feel for someone's energy, someone's vibe. So Cat Blue said yes, types other than places where I used to sing. Oh, so are you asking about where you can go to meet and connect with people? Is that right? And then the second, okay, cool. So we can make some space for that. We kind of covered some of that last week, Cat Blue. I don't know if Cat Blue, were you in the session we had last week? Because we covered a lot around like tips of where and how to find community. And if not, I do have a replay of that on YouTube, so you can kind of catch up. But we talked a lot about like ideas of where you can meet people. And another thing that we suggested that I'd said is, if you are going to like a class or a session or somewhere where you're going on your own and you're hoping to meet people, go early and then stick around afterwards as well, because that's when you'll get talking to people when you're like in the queue outside. Yeah, I've got a link tree on my profile and you can catch up on everything there. So yeah, and also for anyone who is new to my sessions, like please give me a follow on Insight Timer. Please share my profile and my tracks with any friends or family who you think would appreciate it, or where they could get value from it. And any donations would be very very greatly appreciated. And just if there's any other teachers here, which I see a few along the little photos on the bottom, please do share your. Oh my God, Danny! Of course, it's your birthday. I'm not a good singer, so I'm not gonna sing happy birthday. But we can all wish Danny a happy birthday, guys. And I'll see if I can think of something in place of singing happy birthday that we can do to celebrate you before the end of the session. So the first kind of tip that I had around, tips of how to improve your connections to other people was actually improving your relationship with yourself. And the second one is kind of greeting people warmly. So I think one of the things that I'm really guilty of, obviously, I feel really comfortable talking to people, but if I'm distracted or if I'm like, let's say, listening to something or I'm rushing around, if I kind of run into someone, well, Danny, I'm glad that you're here with us, and thank you so much for taking the time to be here on your birthday. I really appreciate it. I hope you've got some nice birthday plans. Please let us know what you're up to for your birthday, kind of this week and this weekend. But yeah, what I was saying was that I can sometimes, when I'm, let's say, walking down the street or whatever, and I run into I see a neighbor, if I'm in a rush, my face, I'm not always smiling. So I'm usually if I'm focused on something, let's just say I was looking at my phone, I'm like, or if I'm rushing around, I kind of might have what people call resting face. I'm not gonna say it because I don't know what the swearing policy is on Insight Timer, but it doesn't feel wholesome or like it would be fine. But I'm sure most of you know what I'm saying. But when I'm quite focused, I look really grumpy. And I noticed that when I was on kind of video calls for work, and I'd be reading something while I was on the call, and then you catch yourself, you manage to see yourself in the little video in the corner, and you're like, oh God, is that what my face looks like the whole time when I speak to people? But I noticed sometimes I do that in person where, if I'm just rushing around and I see someone, I'm not immediately it takes me a second to kind of turn my light on and smile and be like, oh, hey. So I think, but yeah, making sure that you still make that effort, even if you're rushing, to pause and give the people that you run into or that or that you see a little bit of warmth and positivity. And the way that I think about it is shining your light. And it's also one of the other reasons that I think that's really important is a bit when you treat yourself well and speak to yourself kindly, then you're able to kind of accept the same from other people, but also you're showing people how to treat you. And in the same vein, when you greet people kind of warmly and you come to the table with positivity and light and warmth, you usually end up getting the same back, but also you're kind of leading by example. You're showing other people that they can and should also kind of do the same if they can or if they'd like to. So one of the kind of analogies that I heard on this topic was imagine if you were in a doctor waiting room and the doctor, and I've been in situations like this. I had a medical appointment a couple of weeks ago, and I was a little bit nervous, and I basically was in the waiting room, and the nurse comes out, and she's this vibrant, bubbly ball of energy, and she was so lovely, and I was just like, oh, this is an unpleasant thing I've got to do, but actually I'm really happy to be here, and I'm having a lovely time. And it was her energy. She was so friendly and positive, and it changed my energy. And that's really important to be mindful of, is how we can influence the energy of other people and how other people's energy can impact us. And in this situation where we're talking about, obviously, how we show up, how we build better, more positive, meaningful connections, that's a really important thing to think about, is how we lead with light. And equally, when we're having a bad day or we're a bit kind of grumpy or negative, that also spills over, and that is kind of, it can be a little bit contagious too. And on that note, just kind of the flip side of us being kind of bubbly and positive and wanting that from other people, I think it's also important where we can to try and protect our energies around energies that are negative. So and I know that that's kind of a difficult topic, because a lot of us will have people or situations in our life that we have to encounter or deal with, whether that's work or family or things like that, and we can't necessarily easily pick and choose. But I think we do have the option of maybe limiting, let's say, how much we engage in conversation with those people, how much time we spend with them, for example, if they don't make us feel good and if it's not a kind of comfortable, healthy, happy, sort of fruitful space for us. So it's kind of, because if other people's energy affects our energy, that then has a knock-on effect in how we then engage with other people. So it's not even a selfish thing. It's kind of us protecting ourselves, but also we're like, we're paying it forward as well. So Marthy's, it is contagious. Yeah, sharing our aura, helping people to be happy. And yeah, just a smile can be a lifesaver. So, I'll give you an example. In my local kind of tube station or train, if you don't know what the tube is in London, there's like a couple of homeless guys that I always will say hello to. There's also two that I don't really say hi to because I think I've tried to say hi to them once or twice and they've been quite grumpy or seemed quite like not sort of very receptive. But they're these two guys and they're brothers, but they're never there at the same time, except for one time. And I'll tell this story in a moment, actually. It's quite funny. So essentially, I'll always say hi to this guy and we'll always just like exchange a smile. It'll just be as I'm walking past. He's kind of sat on the side and I'll just say hi and we'll just be like, you all right? And just smile. And, I don't like intimately know him, but I know that it's a nice thing for me and it's a nice thing for him. And sometimes, if I've got like some food or whatever, I'll give it to him. And the kind of, but that makes a difference, right? And the same thing I'd say is that there's like a security guard that's like often at the entrance of the local supermarket at Sainsbury's near where I live, and I'll always say hi when I walk past or when I go in, and it's like if I didn't have that, the little familiar exchange and the other staff members there, my trip to the supermarket would be a lot less kind of engaging, like positive. Um, I'd feel less kind of part of something. And it's such a, it's a very small thing, just kind of going to, just kind of going to the shop. But actually, it's made much nicer and much more meaningful and fruitful from the fact that I see people that I recognize and say hi to. And, for example, the security guard will always ask me how my guinea pigs are. Because obviously I don't know that much about him and he doesn't know that much about me, but it's like the little details we do know, we'll like sort of speak about or make conversation about. Although that is a kind of small talk, that's in the realm of kind of small talk. Although I have actually had kind of deeper, more kind of sharey conversations with him where I told him a lot more. And let me just catch up on the comments. Yeah, so the funny story that I was going to tell about the kind of two guys that I mentioned, the two homeless guys that are in my local station. So they're usually never there at the same time. So basically, I used to say hi to. There was this one guy, and I used to say hi to him all the time. And then one time, I went up on the escalator, and there was two guys, and they looked exactly the same. And I went to say hi to one of them because I recognized him, and then the other one turned around, and it was basically like they're brothers. They're not twins, but they look very, very similar. And they both said hi to me really enthusiastically. And what I realized that I didn't know at the time is that basically I'd been saying hello for like years to these two different guys, thinking it was the same guy. And they said that they've had that before. And I was like, oh, are you guys twins? And they were like, no, we're brothers, but we know we look alike. So yeah, it's quite interesting. And so, whenever if I give, for example, something to one of them, I'd say like, I'll give this other thing to your brother. And so we've had some new people join. Does anybody want to like say hello or introduce themselves or have a little recap on what we're talking about? Eager's been the fantastic welcoming committee so far. So the kind of third tip that I wanted to share around building slightly deeper, more meaningful connections and communication skills particularly is being curious and kind of cultivating curiosity. So ultimately, when we think about how we, engage with people, and when you meet someone new, I'd really like to know this. If you guys can put in the chat, what are the first like 3 things that you ask people when you meet somebody new? what are the first three things that you ask? And I'm sure we're going to have some very common crossover answers, although maybe not, because we're on Insight Timer, and I feel like a lot of us are a bit more creative and think a little bit more, a little differently. But yeah, if you can put in the chat, what are the top kind of main initial questions that you ask people when you meet them, or that you think to ask people? Let's say, imagine that you've gone to a neighbour's party, or you've gone to a friend's birthday, and you're kind of making small talk or just making conversation with people who are there. What are the first three things that you ask them? I'm gonna give you guys a second to kind of have a think and share in the chat if you'd like to. For anyone else that's new here, please say hi. Hi, Ren. And yeah, so I'm gonna go with what my previous, or the questions I most commonly get asked is what do you do for work? Where do you live? Yeah, exactly, Matthews. How are you? Do you live far from here? It's nice to know you. Yeah, I think, and also, so it's kind of, yeah, where do you live? How are you? Or are you having a good night? Or are you having a good day, or whatever? Or are you enjoying the party? I feel like is usually one. And then also, what do you do is a very common one. I think obviously that depends on also, your life stage and where you live and stuff. But at least in London, people most commonly not care about, but ask what you do. PJ, how are you today? How about them Red Sox or Patriots this season? Come on, Kamala Trump. Yeah, that's definitely more interesting. So, Danny, you like to ask what their nerd is, what they can nerd out on, and just talk for days about. I love that, and that's very much what I kind of the kind of angle that I take as well. So, and this is great because for anybody that doesn't, necessarily have that much of a comfort zone, or wouldn't think outside the box with asking questions, or this is all great inspiration or ideas on how we can connect in more interesting ways with people. So one of the things that I quite often ask is what they're passionate about, or what they like to do in their spare time. And I know those are pretty standard questions as well, but I think you kind of really get some interesting answers. So I went to this work lunch thing, and I was there. I didn't know anyone else there. I was sat next to two people, and we were kind of in various conversations. And one of the people asked me, the boring things of what I do, where I live, etc. And then I asked about, what do you do in your spare time? Like, what are you really passionate about? Is there anything like surprising? Is there anything that would surprise me about you? And basically, I found out some really interesting things. So, for example, the guy sat next to me, he was really into kind of like supercars and racing cars, but he also adopted disabled cats. And it was kind of quite a like paradox in terms of his, like, the way he spoke about both things was like he had a different energy when he was engaging in each of those topics. So it's really interesting when you kind of find out sort of random things about people. And on that note, I think it's also worth thinking about what you share with people and how you show up and what you bring to the table. So for those of you who know and who've been to my sessions before, obviously I've kind of gone through redundancy with work recently. I've started my journey as a teacher on Insight Timer. This is session number 3. And it somehow feels the most kind of disjointed so far. Because I kept saying the word buckets. And for any of you that want to know what the buckets thing is about and you missed that, I'm not going to repeat it again, but I will say that you can watch the kind of replay on YouTube, which is on my link through my link tree. But yeah, so with the kind of, where was I? I've lost my train of thought, which happens at least once a session, and this is the time. No, we were talking about how we show up in conversation, and like thinking about how we want to position ourselves, how we want to talk about ourselves. And it's not about necessarily pre-planning or being contrived, but I think it's about being very like measured and specific in how we see ourselves, what we feel our kind of like intrinsic value is, what we find interesting about us, what we want other people to know about us. So, if I was telling people about me, for example, I've recently started to say that I teach on Insight Timer, and I'm passionate about building community and teaching people how to build authentic, meaningful connections in their lives, and in order to alleviate loneliness and isolation. And that is a mouthful, and I want to figure out a nice kind of concise way of saying it, or sharing it. And Lorette, thanks for the update. Yes, the disabled cat. I'm also working on this theatre show. It's like an immersive theatre show in London. It's called, and the name is very funny, it's called You Me Bum Bum Train, which I recommend kind of looking into it, especially if you're in London. It's a very kind of interesting thing to either volunteer with or find out about attending. But it's very oversubscribed. It's really hard to get tickets. You've got to kind of like sign up on a ballot system, which is like open at the moment. But and those are two hugely brand new things for me. They're not kind of, I think the community and the connections thing has been really important for a long time for me, for most of my life, through various things I've done, like volunteering, and it's always what I've gravitated towards. I really care about people. I love people and connecting with people. But in terms of it being like a formal thing that I'm talking about and creating content around and, advocating for, this is all fairly new. And at least like, doing it in like a more formal way, because I think I've always done it like informally in the communities I'm part of and in my local area and things like that. But it's not like it's been, a core part of my identity for the last like however many years, in a way where I'm doing Insight Timer Lives or, making content or got a YouTube channel about it. And so that's been a kind of interesting thing to share, because it's partly like this is very new, it's only been a couple of months, but it's still, this is what I currently am really passionate about and focused on, and that will only continue to grow. So it's like that's one of the first things I say about myself. And it's but it's interesting how even when we're asked the boring questions of what we do, how we answer. Because I think for a long time, even when I worked in a kind of traditional job, when people would ask me things about my life, and even when they directly asked me what I do for work, is like I would very briefly touch upon the question, the answer, and then I would like sort of talk about something else that I was more interested in. So I think like even if, just because my point is, just because someone asks us a boring question or like a standard question, we can be more creative with our answers and how we approach it, and also like change the tone of the conversation by asking a much more fun thing. I'm just gonna check my list. So yeah, like then, and the kind of point of that is cultivating curiosity. So I think another key tip on that front is when someone mentions something, delving deeper. So basically, even if someone tells you what they do for work, for example, if that is the kind of, if that's your starting point and you're in bucket A, if you want to know what bucket A and bucket B is, you can catch up on the replay. I'm not going to go into it again. But if you're in bucket A and you're basically, like just getting out of your comfort zone for, and starting to build new connections and speak to new people, you can start with the kind of more surface level, easy questions that feel comfortable for you. And even if you're in bucket B, you can do the same and just use that as a jumping off starting point. So start with, for example, where do you live? What do you do for work? Or kind of, something else more kind of traditional. But then you can ask much deeper questions and, delve into layers of that until you kind of get to, like, let's say the core, or, have a more kind of meaningful, deeper understanding of a person. So as an example, is anybody up for doing a little experiment on chat? I'm going to ask you questions directly and you can answer them on chat. Is anyone? Danny, are you around? Can you? And Marthies, I'll go to you if Danny's not game. But Danny, do you want to get involved in this exercise if you're here and can type? Okay, perfect. So Danny, we're all going to play a game collectively. Now, does someone want to start with a kind of boring traditional question for Danny? And we're going to try and find out something really cool and exciting about Danny. And Danny, don't feel like you have to kind of like move the conversation in a certain way. You can answer however you like. But just just, yeah, you can answer whatever feels right, but we're going to try and like keep asking questions about a thing that you say and ask follow-up questions to see how like close we can get to the essence of Dani. Okay, Dani, where do you live? And then if someone else wants to, they have a think about a follow-up question to where do you live, but specifically that might relate to Dani's answer. And if not, then I've got one in mind. So Dani lives in Utah, USA. No, Matthews, we're going off the same one. So I'm going to ask maybe, Dani, what do you love about Utah? What, in your opinion, would you miss, or, you know, if you moved elsewhere, or what's the best thing about Utah? I guess in a kind of traditional, you know, more kind of standard like question would be, oh, you know, how long have you lived there, or like where did you live before, etc. Which we can also ask. If anyone has any other questions relating to specifically Dani living in Utah, please put them in the chat. How much there is to do outside, camping, hiking, etc. So that's really cool because I've just learned something there. I don't know much about Utah. I've been to other parts of the US, but that's like new information for me. Does anybody have a follow-up question for that? Oh, do you mountain bike? Great question. Dani, do you mountain bike? And my question, Dani, is who do you go camping or hiking with? And how long have you known them? Your children. Okay, so this is the thing. So I didn't even know Dani had children. So this is where we're getting into the layers now. So, and obviously this is a bit of a kind of, you know, one-way system. Um, what animals do you come across in camping? Cool, cool. And Dani, how old are your children? So for anyone that is lost or needs a bit of a recap or just joined, we're basically okay, go on, tell us. Dani has, I'm assuming, Dani, that those are the ages of your children and not the numbers of children that you have. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Dani has 5 children. So essentially what we're trying to do here is just like a little experiment. We're trying to get to like interesting or strange or like unusual or like, you know, surprising fact about Dani through starting at a basic question like where do you live? So yeah, you've got 5 children. Amazing. That's a good like range of ages as well. Um, does anybody have a, oh well, happy birthday again. But yeah, 39. You've achieved a lot in that time, Dani. Um, so let me think of a question. If anyone else has a follow-up question around camping and Dani's children, do all of your children like camping? Who loves camping the most and who likes camping the least and why? Or alternatively, what do you like about camping with your children the most? What's the best thing about camping with your children? So what we're basically trying to do is to connect with Dani in a kind of on a deeper, more like trying to understand what he cares about and what matters to him and like, you know, what his kind of like values or priorities are without kind of directly asking that. So, you know, and that as an example, like obviously you can just ask someone what their values are, but if you've just met them at a party, that's probably a bit of a weird thing to do. Okay, so they all love to go camping, and your son gets lost while exploring, and your girls love the singing while you hike. So that's another new thing that we just found out. So Dani clearly values and prioritizes like family, time outdoors, nature, um, and you know, like connection to his children. And the singing while you hike is a new piece of information for us. What do you cook when you go camping? Do you fish? Interesting. And Dani, I'm going to ask: did you go camping when you were a child as well? Did your parents take you camping? For anybody who's just joined, we're all playing a little game where we're trying to get to know our birthday boy Danny, and connect with him by asking questions about. We started with, and this is where we'll go to kind of we'll see the full thread. But we've basically started with asking where he lives, and he said he lives in Utah. From that, I asked, what do you love most about Utah? What would you miss if you moved away? And he said camping, being out. There's lots of things to do outside. And then I asked who he goes camping with. He said his children. And I asked how many kids he has, and he said 5. And he gave their ages. And then we're on the topic now of like what they kind of enjoy most about camping. And we found out that he sings with his kids. Sounds very wholesome and lovely, to be honest. And Marthies has asked, what do you cook when you go camping? Do you fish? So Danny, you do fish, but you love to cook pizza, stews, burgers, hot dogs, anything really. That sounds delicious. And then I also asked if Danny camped growing up with his family. So are there any other people here that are into camping or do a lot of camping? Because I'll be honest, my experience of camping is very limited. When I don't know if those of you living in the UK kind of know about something called the Duke of Edinburgh Award. And those of you abroad probably don't know what it is. But essentially, it's when you're in school, you do kind of a list of like things, and there's like volunteering that you do. There's a few other things you have to do to kind of fulfill the requirements. And then you get like a certificate. And one of the things that you have to do is basically camping outside. And I'd never camped, and that's the only time I've really done it. So it was an interesting experience, but you've also got to like hike and navigate from one place to another and not get lost or injured or whatever. But I feel like it was in, not great British weather. It was kind of cold and wet and very like forced. So I don't think that I have properly experienced the kind of goodness and wholesome nature of what actually real camping is, and what it has to offer. And it wasn't somewhere particularly scenic either. Hi, Suleiman. Nice to see you here. So we have 76 meditators here. Thank you for joining, guys. We had on my first session we had 192, which was like super surprising. I've done a bit less kind of sharing of this one beforehand, and the session we had last week we had 168 people, which was great. But I feel like today I just felt a bit more. I feel like today's vibe is a bit more kind of intimate and special, and building connection with each other. So has anyone got any follow-up questions for Danny? Because this is the interesting thing. Usually what happens in a conversation, and I'm kind of and I've kind of led it this way as well intentionally, is we tend to, when someone tells us that they do a thing or they've done a thing, or like when they're like when I, let's say you ask someone what was the last holiday you went on, and they say, oh, Spain, the immediate instinct usually we mostly have is to jump in and say, oh my god, I've been to Spain too, like I loved it, blah, blah, blah. And then we talk about it depending on the energy of whether you're someone that's quite vocal and sort of comfortable sharing more, or if you're someone that's quieter, you might not do that. But that's a typical thing that most of us do, is when we're in a conversation and we hit a kind of common ground, or something where we can relate to, that part of our brain kicks in, like, oh, me, I did that, I want to share as well. And it sometimes is worth overriding that instinct in order to learn more about the other person and kind of listen better. And that's something that I need to kind of try and do more. So questions we've had: what creatures do you need to be wary of camping, and which creatures do you see in Utah? So those are great questions, but I'm trying to get deeper. We're trying to get deeper to the heart of Danny. So it's things that we can kind of it's things that we can follow up on, given the information that he's given us so far, is what we're trying to get at. So the last thing that you said, kind of about sort of like in terms of personal connection, Danny, you said, I did camp with my family growing up. So I'm going to ask you, are you comfortable like sharing a kind of memory or something that you really like, something that's special to you about those times camping with your family when you were younger? Like a story or a memory or anything like that. And if anyone has any other like similar follow-up questions, that will help us get to the heart of Danny and get, closer to understanding Danny on his birthday, but also just generally because he's an important pillar in the Insight Timer community, like many of you are. That's what we're kind of aiming for. So put those questions in the chat. And there aren't any wrong answers, so just any questions that come to mind as well. Because we're also learning about camping and creatures to be wary of and health and safety. So your son camps in the Sierra Mountains and your grandchildren love it. That sounds amazing. And the creatures that you need to be wary of is bears, mountain lions, wolves, moose, and then it's exciting to see deer or the variety of birds. Oh, Marthy's very good question. What was the most scary moment while camping? So, Danny, the best thing about camping is when you first wake up in the morning, the air is brisk and dad is making breakfast. It's so peaceful and serene. I love now being that dad to my kids. So that's such a beautiful story, and I think it gives us like more of a picture of kind of, Danny coming full circle from having this lovely experience of camping growing up to then now being able to do the same for his children and give that to his kids. And had we not kind of followed that train of that kind of chain, not train, well, train, chain, buckets. For those of you who've been in the session earlier, you'll get the bucket reference. For those of you who missed it, it's not that great, but you can catch up on the beginning part on YouTube. So, and a little reminder as usual, for anybody that needs a nudge to hydrate or drink some water, please do. I've heard so many like love it's a very common like meme and a thing that went around the internet years ago, but I still really value it. And it's basically saying that, ultimately we're just like sophisticated plants. We just need like water and sunlight and good nutrition, essentially. Obviously, plant food for them, but yeah, it's if you can take care of those like basic needs of hydration and getting enough sleep and getting some vitamin D and sunshine where you can, it definitely helps. So has anybody got any other like specific questions that we can ask Danny before we wrap up this exercise? So follow-up questions to him telling that story about, his dad making pancakes and him now being able to do the same thing for his kids. Thank you, Marthy. That's so kind of you. I really appreciate your donation. And for anybody else that is open to or in a position to donate, I really appreciate your generosity, and it kind of helps me on my journey as a new teacher and shows me that you kind of value the work that I do. But also, as Catherine Ramati, one of the other wonderful teachers on here, says, she basically says that, when you give, you're creating a vacuum whereby you then get the same kind of energy back. So you're creating like abundance for yourself. PJ, thank you so much for joining, and I hope to see you at my next session. I won't have one next week because I'm away, but it will be the week after. But please follow me. You can go on my Linktree and see where else to find me as well. And yeah, it was a pleasure to have you here and to meet you. So, and I hope your dog as well. So Peterborough, a treasured moment camping with your kids. Yeah. Oh, Danny. So we've come all the way full circle. So Danny's just said that his kids made him pancakes for his birthday breakfast this morning. That's wonderful. That's so lovely. So I feel like pancakes are like a happy food for you. I mean, they're a happy food for most of us, probably. I'm sure you've got really nice memories of, you're going to be able to kind of like remember that as well now, and that's a connection. Danny, I don't know if your dad is still kind of with us, but whether he is or isn't, it's such a nice thing that you've got this connection of like, and food and memory is so important in kind of building connection sometimes as well. And actually, I'll probably do a separate session at some point on, how we can use food to connect with people, because that's certainly a way that I connect with people for sure. But yeah, so you've got this memory of like your dad making pancakes for you when you were camping in the morning, and then that being one of your happiest kind of camping memories, and then you being able to give your children the same thing when you go on camping trips with them, and then them doing that for you on your birthday. And also, are we enjoying this game? Is it useful? Is it helpful? Have we got any kind of like learnings or insights from this that we want to just share with the group that I haven't already kind of covered? So for anyone that's just joined, we've been playing a game with Danny around, basically it's Danny's birthday. So first of all, that's why I picked him. But we're trying to basically understand like the values that Danny has and what is at the heart of Danny. And we won't cover everything, but we'll get hopefully a deeper glimpse into things that he cares about, things that matter to him, some of his like memories and feelings. And we're basically doing this to show that, even if you start at a basic question like where do you live or what do you do for work, if you keep on that kind of chain of sort of thinking and you delve deeper into each thing that the person said, you kind of can get deeper and deeper and deeper. And it's important to focus on here the specific thing about them or their connection to it that they've shared, and asking questions that align with that. So as an example, like we've had a bunch of different questions that have come up, and I think that it kind of demonstrates the point really well. So for example, some people asked like, what animals do you see when camping? And that's kind of a sort of factual generic answer that Danny has. Whereas when you ask questions like, oh, what's your happiest memory when camping, or who do you go camping with, it helps us to be able to kind of connect better and in a kind of more interesting way. So we've kind of, for those of you who've just joined, like we've kind of come full circle. Danny's basically told us through a series of other questions that around his kind of relationship to camping when he was young, and like I think and just to respond to Martha's point, it is a fun game to play, yeah. And I think also, if you view connecting with people as like a little bit like, it's a testing ground, let me try out new kind of techniques or questions and see kind of what I enjoy doing and what's kind of interesting, but also helps me to connect with people better. And the example I gave about that kind of work lunch dinner thing that I went to, where it was a lunch. I don't know why I said lunch dinner thing. It was a lunch, and everyone was having kind of boring business chat, and I essentially was asking people what I was passionate about. I was talking about a topic that I really am interested in, like human psychology and kind of relationships and dating and that kind of thing, and communication and connection. And we ended up having like a lot of fun. And our side of the table where we were speaking, we were kind of laughing and really connecting with one another, whereas the other people kind of sounded and looked bored. So it's worth kind of thinking about also, it's not only about connecting with people, but it's actually like really enjoying ourselves as well, and having conversations, talking about things that we're going to find stimulating and fun and are going to bring light and joy to the other person as well. And as an example here, Danny, I'd love to know for you, how did you feel answering the questions and us kind of like taking an interest in you in this kind of way? Like, how did it make you feel? And do you have any feedback being kind of on the other end of that? And let me see. And the other point that I would make for anybody who's just joined, who missed out earlier on, is that when we have a conversation, or we have a question around sorry, I'm a bit distracted by the comments. So yeah, I know Danny said it was fun, but I'd love to know, like, do you have any specific feedback on the kind of more kind of deeper level questions we were asking, or us trying to connect with you or give you the opportunity to talk about kind of things that are more special to you? So just a reminder on the other thing I was saying, that when we have conversations with people and they mention something that we can relate to or that we can connect with. So for example, if someone says like, oh, I really love like diving. And quite often, instead of us asking, oh, like more follow-up questions about their love of diving, we might say, oh my God, I love diving too. Like, I just went to Thailand last year and did some diving, etc. And we can sometimes accidentally, without meaning to, then cut people off or not give us the opportunity to like learn more about them. So Danny's got some feedback for us. So the questions that directed me towards things I really care about made me smile a lot while playing, and I got happier. It was easy to talk about. Yeah, so that's kind of the point. It's like you want to make a conversation more kind of fun and bring light and joy, and hopefully, this is an example of how you can do that. So, does anybody want to play the kind of less connection driven version of this? Just as an example, I know Marthy's, you were kind of down to play. This isn't going to be as like fun as Danny's, but I mean, and actually, we almost don't even need to play it. But if I just said to you, like, oh, what do you do for work? Like, where do you live? Like, oh, have you lived there long? Um, we would both be bored ultimately, like, depending on what your answers were. Um, if we were just like, because it's almost like an interview. And yeah, E, I can't see any name other than E, so I'm going to call you E. I hope that's okay, but let me know if there's a name that we should be calling you. You try to practice pausing and asking a question instead. It means you have to tell yourself how the topic relates to you just in your head. I really struggle with that. I really struggle with that personally, because you guys have probably noticed this, I'm a very like passionate and enthusiastic person. Although when I'm doing these lives, I kind of do them at this time to kind of hit a few different time zones. And I am at the end of my day and I'm a bit less like energetic than I would otherwise be. But I mean, I always joke and say that even me at like half charge or half volume is still potentially more enthusiastic or more energetic than a lot of people. Um, but yeah, I get really passionate and I get really excited. And when I have a thought, I kind of immediately think like, oh, but I want to share that. And I'm trying really hard to kind of work on that and override it, and not like interrupt or cut people off, because it's not that I think what I have to say is more important. It's just that there's a kind of enthusiasm and passion there, but also possibly a little bit of undiagnosed ADHD. Although I know that kind of gets thrown around as a sentiment a lot, but um, yeah, I've kind of you only manage it about 2 out of 10 times. Still, that is a very good amount compared to not at all. And the fact that you're mindful of it and conscious of it is the first step. So oh, Evie, that's so sweet. I love your energy too when you're here on these sessions. And just another little thing that I wanted to mention is next week, I've already said this, but I won't be doing a live because I'm going to Istanbul on Thursday this week. But I'll be doing, and I'm not back until the end of next week, but I will be doing, actually, I think I could squeeze in a live next Friday. If that around like Friday 9 p.m., I think I should hopefully be able to do that. So maybe I'll have a look and see if I can do that, because I would love to do one weekly without missing a week. And I had plans like next Friday, but I think I can probably move them or something. So I'll try and work it out. Although I never know, is Friday night a good insight time of night around this time on a Friday? Are people around and down, and should we do a different kind of energy or vibe or like a hangout? Danny, are you an animal person? And is there anyone here that's like an animal person? Because I did say one of the previous weeks I said that I would show my guinea pigs. Hi, tea lady. Hi, Rachel. We haven't done a meditation, so my sessions are more of a talk. I may do. We did a little exercise though. My sessions are more kind of a kind of talk with a bit of interactivity. Um, we've just been talking about how to build, kind of how to have deeper, more meaningful connections with people and use kind of communication, different communication styles and questions. And I am gonna. I just need to check on one of the guinea pigs. Funny enough, one of them has epilepsy, and he occasionally has the little odd. It's not quite a full seizure, but yeah, I'm gonna go and get them right now for Danny's birthday. So this is Pumpkin. Thank you, Rachel. I actually have so many plants in my space, so maybe I'll do a little like plant tour at some point. I'm packing to go away, so basically this is like some of my other plants, but I'll show you guys more kind of another time because I've got stuff all over my sofa which I don't really want you to see. Although actually, maybe I can. Hold on. If I tilt it like this, then you can't see. So there's like plants in all that corner as well. I will get Pumpkin back up because I think people would like to see him. So he has oh, he's too close to the mic. Sorry guys. So he lives with two other piggies. And they are called Bear and Monkey. Although Pumpkin doesn't like Monkey. Sorry, Monkey doesn't like Pumpkin and Pumpkin and Bear don't like Monkey, and they have had some quite bad fights and some bloodshed, so they're separated. So Pumpkin and Bear live together downstairs. They've got a little they basically have a mansion. Let's be honest. I mean, some of you have seen it from when I've done one of my lives previously, but the first live, in fact. So this is their house. So it is like an animal hutch from Pets at Home. So I didn't have it like custom built or anything, because people always think that. People always think like, oh wow, you got your guinea pig as like a a palace. So I don't know if you guys can hear his, I don't know if he'll start squeaking. Can you guys hear him? So for anybody that missed a session, so Rachel, I know you missed kind of the sessions so far. There is a replay that you can watch on YouTube, and the link's in my link tree. And we have 120 meditators here. So for anyone that's just joined and kind of missed the session, you can watch the replay on YouTube. But right now we're just having a bit of a hangout and some guinea pig time to kind of celebrate Danny's birthday. So yeah, I'm just trying to. Can you hear the noises, guys? And maybe at some point I can do like a guinea pig feeding time. Oh, Rachel, that would be lovely. Yeah. And also, if anyone has any feedback or anything I could be doing like better to make it kind of more interesting or interactive for you guys, or anything that you guys want me to cover or talk about. Yeah. One thing that Pumpkin also does, which is, hey, one thing that he also does is he actually does kisses sometimes. So if I put my finger in front of him, he'll do like these really little licks. I don't know if he'll do it now, but yeah. But I will also introduce you guys to Bear and Monkey at some point. Monkey is a very, very squeaky boy. So yeah, Pumpkin never used to enjoy being petted. He used to absolutely hate it, and now he makes purring sounds. He used to headbutt my hand off when I would pet him. And I don't know if you guys can hear Bear squeaking in the background. So Bear's an interesting pig. He has maybe the last bit of the session will just be piggies today, but Bear has epilepsy, and he's slightly blind, and he's slightly disabled. And my friends joke that I brought him back from the brink of death, because he actually was having a really hard time health-wise, and was really struggling, but he's doing much better now. And if anybody wants to make a donation, like specifically, for the piggies, like I'm always happy for you to let me know, and I can get some like treats or some toys for them, and then let you know what I got as well. But I do find that they're very sweet, and they're very calming animals. And maybe I'll do like a guinea pig session. Oh my god, Pumpkin is not timid. Guinea pigs generally are like prey animals, but he's can you guys hear the noises? He's just very happy right now. He's very content. But Pumpkin, when he was a baby, he used to like snatch food all the time off the other two. I'm getting a little kiss. Aww. Yeah, Pumpkin used to snatch food off the other two, and Bear at some points was so weak that Peterbrook, and it's crazy, the medication that he has for epilepsy is actually just like medication that's for dogs, but it's just a lower dosage. So have we got any comments? Yeah, they're really cute noises. And have you guys heard the sounds that guinea pigs make when they think food is going to happen, like the squeaking? Because it is crazy. Maybe I'll do like but anyway, so what I was going to say about Bear is Bear now is doing so well, and he can even do like the same tricks that well, not all the same tricks that Pumpkin can do, but for example, people don't think guinea pigs can do anything, but they if you like when it's their dinner time, which is actually after my session, if I stand in front of their space with the pellets and I say turn circles, they'll run around in circles, and I never ever thought that Bear would be able to do that. And yeah, he can now. So would you guys like it if in future I just have the piggies while I chat about community and connection? Yeah, what I'll do, I'll try and put a video somewhere on my link tree or something of them doing their circles as well. But yeah, they're very sweet. And I want to go back. Pumpkin will give me a little nibble if he wants to go back. But they do communicate really well. But right now he's giving me little kisses. He's giving me little licks. But they're all boys. But yeah, people kind of don't think that guinea pigs can kind of do much. But they're very sweet. And they're bigger than people think. Like they're about a kilogram each. And they're just like little rabbits. And they're really good with children. They are very kind of tolerant of being like manhandled by children. Not manhandled obviously, but like, they kind of would normally get annoyed if it's like an adult. They'd kind of headbutt you off, but with kids they kind of don't seem to mind. I think they, animals have a sense of these things. So I think, yeah, next week I'll try and introduce you to one of the others. I think today is Pumpkin's night. But yeah, when if you can hear squeaking, when it's feeding time, he will literally like all three of them will squeak really loudly, and it's the craziest thing. Oh, I just did a thumbs up by accident. So yeah, back to the kind of subject of kind of community. And you know what, actually, I will share a little guinea pig story about community and connection. Having the piggies has actually helped me to connect with a lot of neighbours, especially those who have little ones. So there's a little girl who actually I was going to see her tonight, but I'm going to see her tomorrow. Who in my development who has cancer, and unfortunately, she's like able to go to school some of the time, but she's also in and out of hospital a lot. And I got talking to her mum one time, and I said, and this is before I'd met the little girl, and I said, if she wants to come over and see the guinea pigs at some point, she's more than welcome to, if that's something she'd like. And her mum said, yeah, she's like really wanted a rabbit, so I'm sure she'd love to do that. And so she's come over a few times to see them, and then now we hang out a lot, just even outside of the piggies. Like sometimes I'll go there, or we'll meet and go to the park or whatever. And it's kind of, and it's actually been a really interesting thing for me as well. I didn't have any pets growing up. Like these are the first pets that I ever had. Hey, okay. But yeah, these are the first pets that I have had. I might put Pumpkin down. Is Pumpkin squeaking distracting, or would people prefer to be able to like see him and have him around? Let me know. I bet all the hearts are for Pumpkin. Sweet boy. Yeah, I love their noises. Like it's so relaxing as well, isn't it? But people sometimes say that they think they sound like animals. I'm sorry, like birds. Like when they're squeaking for food. So I will when I have Bear. He's not as vocal, but Monkey, Bear will squeak like for food and attention, but Monkey is like the squeakiest pig you'll ever meet. But anyway, the thing I was saying about kind of connection is that like I'd never had any pets growing up, and since I had these guys, I've had them for 3 and a bit years now. They basically they basically want to go back, which just want attention. Okay, so he's nibbling me now, which means very lightly, which means that he wants to go back to the wall. So bye. Still making the noises. But I just if I pop him on the floor, he'll kind of walk home by himself, which is really cute, which I'll also show you guys at some point as well. So yeah, the thing I was saying was that essentially, can you guys hear the squeaking? I don't know if you can, but anyway, yeah, can you guys hear that or not really? I don't know because the mic's on me. Oh, you can. Okay, cool. So that's like a quiet version of what they're like when they hear the fridge, when they hear the crinkle of like a salad bag, when they hear like chopping, they assume that it's food for them, or if they hear a container open, and yeah, it's like an orchestra of squeaking. I'll yeah, I can maybe, what I'll do next time is I'll put my, or maybe even before, do people want to hear that? Because I can, you know, it's their feeding time soon. I'm going to put my mic near them and you guys can hear what happens when guinea pigs hear food. I'm just putting the microphone like in their space. So I am actually going to give them a treat so it's not a false alarm for them, because that wouldn't be very nice. Right, microphone's back. I have wet hands now from washing some salad. Can you guys hear me? Is my audio okay? Yeah, perfect. Did you guys hear the squeaking? Like, that's not even them at their loudest. That's them kind of knowing probably that they have an audience and that something's going on. E, thank you so much for your donation. I really appreciate that. If anyone else would like to support my work, and you know, if you've had value from this session or you've just had a fun time, I think, yeah, I'd really appreciate any kind of any support you have for me, whether that's in the form of a donation or sharing my profile and my lives with your friends or family, or also following me on here or on my other platforms, which you can find in my link tree. So you can also watch the replays of this session and the last two sessions on YouTube. But the thing that I was saying about the piggies, because Pumpkin needed to go home. So basically, seeing my mum and my sister and other family members connect with them, and kind of the different like dynamic and energies that they would bring to the table, you know, when they come to my house, for example, and see the guinea pigs, and even seeing the way my mum would light up and the way she'd like speak to them and fawn over them. And you know, I'm sure she would do the same like if I had children and she was a grandma, but you know, I don't have children yet. And so it's just really like sweet and really heartwarming to see. And I think it's like, you know, the piggies have helped me get closer to like my family and also other kind of friends, neighbors, etc. And it's also meant that I've built relationships with people where, you know, in a way where with the guinea pigs, if I go away or if I am like, you know, if I can't sort of if I'm not in London for a night or two, then I have to ask other people for help, because actually I don't know what it's like where you guys are, but in the UK, or at least in London, it's near impossible to find a guinea pig sitter. So basically you can get people who will look after dogs or cats or pop in and help with them, but for guinea pigs it's like near impossible. And so it's been really like difficult, because if I could kind of just get like paid help, obviously I would. Um, but I've had to kind of, you know, ask friends or family instead, and that's been a really kind of interesting thing as well. It's sort of like, you know, obviously it kind of puts you on the one hand in the position of sort of being like a bit vulnerable or having to ask for help, or maybe, you know, having to rely on other people, but at the same time it gives you a lot of it gives you, oh, Evie, are you in London? It gives you, it gives you a lot of also connection and trust, and like builds that community, because like if I didn't have guinea pigs I wouldn't be asking my friends to kind of help me with the piggies, for example. Like I wouldn't, sorry, I got distracted because I read a comment from Nicole about looking into trusted house sitters. But yeah, it's basically, and the thing is, the problem I slightly have as well is with Bear, he needs medication twice a day, in the morning and at night time, for his epilepsy. So um it basically means that I need somebody who I can trust, but who's also like comfortable with picking them up and doing that. Danny, this has been an absolute joy. It was so nice to see you, and thanks for being here. And like, thank you for doing our little experiment. If any of you want to know about the experiment we did with Danny on his birthday, please, you can please like rewatch and catch up on that. It's basically a masterclass in how you get to the heart of like what somebody cares about through just how you kind of follow on asking questions about like you starting from a seemingly innocuous topic like um, where do you live or what do you do for work? But happy birthday, Danny. And I'm glad that we could do a little something because I don't sing, so I'm not going to be singing happy birthday on here. And yeah, so another thing that I'll note is I don't know whether it's just me, but tell me if you guys noticed this or felt it. But from before I had pumpkin to now, I personally feel a shift in my energy. I feel a lot more kind of energetic. I feel a little bit calmer. Has anyone noticed any change in my energy from when I had the piggy time and also from when I stood up to give them some kale? Because I feel like, so in terms of like for us energetically as well, I think obviously engaging with like pets or babies or whatever is really like calming and helpful. But also, but I do understand that not everybody likes animals, or like not everybody is a pet person. Not everybody, there's loads of people that, for example, aren't like the hugest fan of kids either. But on the whole, it's like having connection to a living being or a living thing um, does help, and also changing your physiology. So like just the fact that I was sat down for ages and I stood up and then sat back down, that makes a difference too. So I did have, and I think we're at 10:30. So I try and keep it to an hour and a half, and leave you wanting more. But just the last kind of few tips I wanted to cover was, we've obviously talked about some other tips in terms of connection and communication, and I do recommend that anyone that missed it like catches up on those. But practice is a really important one. I've kind of touched upon it in a few ways. But yeah, all of the kind of different things that we've talked about and various kind of things that you want to try and that we'll cover in coming weeks as well is kind of, yeah, practicing where you can, practicing asking questions or being curious or approaching things in different ways and seeing what feels comfortable for you, what you enjoy and what works for you. Because the ideal outcome here is like, it's not just about connecting with someone, it's also about having a enjoyable time, having like a nice conversation and getting some like value from it as well in the moment, even if you never see them again or never stay in touch. It's like enjoying that connection and that the conversation, and also having kind of some shared light and joy, or laughter ideally is even better. Embracing awkwardness is another one. So if there are kind of awkward moments or awkward silences, like, let me see, which questions is one of the most difficult parts for me. Appreciate helping that area. Yeah. Oh, asking questions. Yeah, I totally, and I think that was the point of the exercise, and maybe we can do more exercises like that in future, Cat Blue. So we basically, for anyone that missed it, we basically covered like a bunch of different questions that you could ask and how certain questions will build greater connection, other questions maybe not as much. So yeah, kind of, asking open-ended questions is really helpful. And I think like the rest of the tips and stuff we'll share in coming weeks. But there was a little thing that I wanted to read to you guys just to kind of end the note on. Let me see if I can find it. I've got too many tabs open, which I don't know what you guys are like, but I have 266 tabs open. Although I don't feel so bad about that because one of my friends told me that he had more than 1,000 tabs open on his phone and his phone like stopped working because he had so many tabs open in Safari. Oh, Cat Blue, yeah, some people have early brain training not to ask questions. Yeah, it's that thing of like, sometimes as children we're told like be seen but not heard. And it's not obviously for everyone, and it's kind of it was something from, longer ago that obviously carried over for some people. And yeah, and it's also sometimes about like keeping ourselves safe. So we think that if we kind of say as little as possible or don't ask or don't kind of like, and particularly about asking different questions or kind of, being more adventurous and more creative, it's that assumption of, it's easier to play it safe and do what people have like done before, etc. So I'm just trying to find this, and if I can't, then I might just end on a different note. But so this is one of the quotes that I had actually to share, and this is a short one because I think I'll go with that because of just the time now. So communication is the lifeline of love. It nourishes the roots and blossoms the flowers of trust. In love, talking openly, and this is not just about love, by the way, but just, in love, relationships, etc. Talking openly is like casting away the shadows and basking in the warm embrace of vulnerability. The deepest connections are woven through conversations that reveal our souls, not just our stories. And I think that perfectly encapsulates kind of a little bit what we did with Danny. Is like we kind of got to a bit of his, the heart of Danny, we were saying, where we found out stories about his kind of upbringing, going camping with his family, and not only that, but what that means to him, specifically around being able to now give his children the same thing, and fulfill the role that his dad had in his life growing up. So yeah, I'm glad that I managed to find it, because I had a few tabs open with a few different quotes, and I kind of did think a little bit like it'll be whichever one I land on or what feels right in the moment. Um, but and I'd be interested to know whether kind of you guys would want to have a specific like piggy session, or I should just bring them into the normal sessions, because I know, there's people on here that do like alpaca yoga and things like that, and I think we'll probably do a little like hangout, maybe next Friday. Actually, I don't know what everyone's availability is like, but maybe next Friday we do a slightly more informal session, same time, and basically like just a bit of a hangout, guinea pigs. We can do feeding time, although I'm concerned about the crunching of their like pellets. Oh, Peter Brick, that's so lovely to hear. And I feel like, every time that I see you guys in these sessions and I see some of you again, it really kind of warms and opens up my heart as well. And I'm so grateful to be here doing this and sharing this time with you. And in what would otherwise potentially be a like scary and directionless time where I've just gone through redundancy, it's so nice to feel like I'm doing something positive and kind of making an impact, and hopefully, creating connection and community with all of you. But also, I don't know if you guys can hear the piggies. It's yeah, it's their dinner time. So I don't know if yeah. Well, can you guys hear that? I mean, I can leave this off now, can't I? Because we're wrapping up. Does anybody have any final like closing remarks or questions before we wrap up? Yeah, they're saying bye as well, Peter Brook, exactly. Or they're just saying, Mummy, can you end the session and give us dinner? Although usually it's like 10:30 here, and I've been feeding them around like 11 p.m. Um, I'm just going to catch up with comments. Marthy's, thank you, Priyanka. It's been very uplifting. It's been a very uplifting and enjoyable session. Much love to you all. Thank you, Marthy's, to you as well. And it's so nice to see you and connect with you here after seeing you on Van My sessions all those years ago. And other sessions as well. Feed me, Seymour. Yeah, that's exactly it. Oh, yeah, Cat Blue, there isn't a guinea pig emoji. You just got to use like the mouse one. Um, I'm really happy you enjoyed the live session, Evie, and that you enjoy the open conversations. And yeah, if any of you in any session want to bring like a topic to the table, even if we've got a kind of topic or a theme in mind, feel free to kind of share or just add a tangent or nudges. Like when I'm in conversation, you probably notice I go off on tangents all the time. So I try and keep a loose theme, but we can always, oh, iPhone says it's a guinea pig. Okay, good to know. Well, I'll include the piggies more often. I'm sure they'd like it as well. But yeah, thank you so much, guys. And as I said, if you guys are able to support me through donations or following me on here on YouTube, I've got a link tree where you can find where the replays are and stuff as well. And thank you and good night from me and the piggies, although you've only met Pumpkin. But yeah, Cat Blue, I will try that. And I think you are right actually, but it does look quite mousy, doesn't it? It doesn't have the kind of chunkiness of a guinea pig. But good night, everybody. Have a lovely, lovely time. And I always run over, as you guys know, but not by too much. Take care, guys. Have a good rest of your night. And between now and next week, try and practice like asking some of these questions and seeing, you know, ultimately when you have like interactions with people, see if you can like get to their core or their kind of heart and their soul. Bye, guys. Good night.